Hello and welcome to the bottom 12 movies that I saw in theaters for 2016. So again, I'm going to start this video by stating that these are only movies that I saw in theaters for this year, or last year now, 2016. It's not going to be anything that I saw this year that might have been an older movie from like the 80s or even 2015 or anything like that I just happened to watch this year for the first time and did a review on. This is only things that came out in 2016 that I saw in theaters. If you don't see something on this list that you say, hey, I think this was worse than something else, again, it's probably either I didn't get around to seeing it, in which case refer to my unseen movies, and even that's not really everything that I didn't see this year. It's just the things that I was going to see this year that I didn't get around to. There's still a lot that I just didn't give a shit about and never went to see and never intended to go see. So if there was something worse, again, it's probably not on the list because either for some reason I deemed these films to be worse or I just didn't get around to seeing it. So with that, let's start.
Number 12.
So the number 12 spot on the bottom worst movies of 2016 goes to Midnight Special. It wasn't a very well publicized film. It was in and out of the theater fairly quickly. I only really remember seeing one preview for it, which kind of looked interesting at the time, and then when I went and saw it, it was just really kind of an uneventful film. Nothing really happened in it, and overall it was just kind of boring. And that's why it takes the number 12 spot on the bottom/worst movies that I saw for 2016.
Number 11.
So the number 11 spot on the worst movies of 2016 goes to Ghostbusters, or Girlbusters, or Ghostbusters Answer the Call, or Ghostbusters 2016, whatever you want to call it. It just wasn't that good. I went into this film hoping it would prove me wrong. A lot of people were down on it because it was an all-female cast. I was willing to give it a chance despite that. I was like, maybe it'll be the thing where everyone kind of looks down on it, and you go and see it, and it's going to turn out to be just as amazing as the original or even the second one, and everyone's going to love it, and it's going to prove everyone wrong. And no, you go into it and it just panders so much to the audience. It tries to make all these cues and references to the originals instead of just being its own standalone piece. And as I've said in other videos, sorry for saying it, but a lot of female comics I just don't find funny. And that was the case in this. I hated the Chris Helmsworth character being the mindless buffoon. I didn't like the female Winston character making racial issues out of things that weren't racial issues. Just overall, it was everything I thought it was going to be, instead of being everything that it could have been and actually proving me and everyone else wrong and being something magical. It just wasn't. It was exactly what you thought it was going to be. It was heavily pandering, and it was just crap. And it didn't need to be made, and that's why it's the number 11 spot on the list of worst films of 2016.
Number 10.
The number 10 spot this year goes to Alice Through the Looking Glass. Talk about pointless films, here's another one. I honestly wish I was doing the list of unneeded films again this year. Unfortunately, most of my bottom list would be on that list, so I really couldn't justify doing it. But Alice Through the Looking Glass is no exception. Wasn't a huge fan of the first live-action Alice in Wonderland that they made, which is pretty sad because I've always kind of been a fan of Tim Burton as a director, although he has kind of fallen off quite a bit in his later years, but his earlier stuff I still love. I'm a huge fan of Johnny Depp. He's probably one of my favorite actors, but some of the roles he picks up, especially when working with Tim Burton, just, I don't know, there's something there where it's just hard to explain. Like, he's a brilliant actor and he can do a lot of magical things, but sometimes he just does something just, I think, to kind of intentionally piss off his audience. It's like, I own an island. I can do whatever I want. So here's a crappy movie just to piss you off. And you can't hate him for it because the potential of what he can do versus what he is doing now. And you just kind of have to look back at him and be like, okay, Johnny, whatever. But yeah, like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of the first one, and this one doesn't add anything to it. Honestly, I kind of like this one better than the first one, but at the same time, it was just an unneeded film, and that's why it's at the number 10 spot on the worst movies of 2016.
Number 9.
So the number 9 spot on the list this year goes to a film that I only recently kind of saw, even though it's been out for a little while, but it is still a 2016 film, and that goes to Max Steel. Why is this on the list? Because, honestly, again, it was kind of a pointless movie. It didn't need to exist. Why is this above the other things that were pointless? Because, as I said in the review, it falls into that trap of trying to cram an entire TV series into one 2-hour movie and just not really giving yourself a chance to expand and develop things in the movie, and you're trying to rush through everything. And in a movie called Max Steel, you only get like 10 minutes of Max Steel. Other than that, it's just Max and him running around and whining about everything. And it was a really uneventful film. Even like the climactic ending, they do nothing to build up to this big bad and why he's against Max Steel. And it's just like, oh yeah, by the way, here's your bad guy. And it was kind of obvious, but yeah, they just did nothing to build it up. And it just falls into that whole trap of, like I said, with The Last Airbender, where there's just too much trying to be done in a short time that's had a lot more time to be developed on TV. And it just doesn't need to exist. It was a nice try, but it could have been so much more. And that's why Max Steel takes the number 9 spot on Worst Films of 2016.
Number 8.
The number 8 film on the list for Worst Films of 2016 goes to Rob Zombie's 31. So why is this one on the list? Well, overall, it wasn't really that bad of a film, other than it's just more Rob Zombie schlock. He's got this pattern that he likes to do, and he's just sticking to it. He puts his wife in every film, and of course she's going to be the last one surviving. Everyone kind of looks dirty and grungy with the long hair and beards, which, is a cool look and all, but when everyone looks like that, it kind of takes away the impact of, hey, that looks cool on this guy in this band, where, oh, now everyone in the world looks like this, and everything's just got that dirty look to it. And the reason it's called 31 is never explained, other than possibly it takes place on Halloween. So, yeah, because of that, because it's just another Rob Zombie schlock film, because that 31 gets the number 8 spot on the Worst Films of 2016.
Number 7.
The number 7 spot on the list this year goes to The Witch, or the Vitch, or the Vitch, whatever it was called. Now, a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, because I've heard a lot of people, even after my review of it, saying, oh, what are you talking about? This movie was great. This movie was great. I don't know what the hell movie you guys were seeing that compared to what I was seeing. This movie, it was pointless. It's another pointless film of the year. I think the reason this one's higher than all the others on the list is because this one had potential to be something good. It started out with a story that was intriguing, and you're like, okay, I want to see where this is going to go. And then it just never went anywhere. It just kind of stagnated at that beginning point. And it wasn't even stagnant enough to keep you interested through the whole thing. It's just kind of like, is this going to go anywhere or not? And then you finally get the ending, and it's like, okay, why? And like I said, other people rave about it, said it was a great movie, one of the best of the year, whatever. I didn't see it in that light, but that's just my opinion. But that's why The Witch, or The Vitch, or whatever it's called, The Witch, gets the number 7 spot on my list of worst films of 2016.
Number 6.
So the number 6 spot this year goes to The Darkness. Much like The Witch, this was just a uneventful film. It had an interesting premise that just didn't go anywhere. But where The Witch is ending was just kind of like, okay. The Darkness' ending was kind of like, what the hell was that? And that's really the only thing that pushes it above The Witch for the number 6 spot on the list of worst films of 2016.
Number 5.
So number 5 spot on this list goes to a film that came out real early in the year, but got a lot of negative reviews of it, including mine. And not unsimilar to The Witch and The Darkness, there was a lot of potential in this movie. And the reason this one is so high up on the list is because it almost got there, but it took a hard nosedive about 20 minutes into the film, and that film is Gods of Egypt. Again, interesting premise. There's a lot of folklore in Egyptian mythology surrounding the gods and everything, and trying to make it into an action film or like a superhero film. There was a lot that could have been done there, and it just took a hard nosedive and it never recovered from it. Overall, it was just kind of a meh film, and I don't feel that it deserved all the negativity that it got, but at the same time, it doesn't have anything really positive going for it other than there was potential there. And I think that because I went into this one wanting to like it and ended up hating it, where with The Witch and The Darkness, I went into them just wanting to see them, so I didn't have any high expectations for them, so the letdown wasn't quite as impactful as with Gods of Egypt. That's why Gods of Egypt goes above The Witch and The Darkness and gets the number 5 spot on the list of worst films of 2016.
Number 4.
So the number 4 spot on the list this year, I thought was actually going to be a lot higher on this list, maybe even the number 1 slot, but it ended up only coming in at number 4, and the number 4 spot goes to Suicide Squad. So why did I decide to only rank this at number 4 as opposed to number 1 or 2 or 3? Well, because even though I knew it was going to be shit from the start, there was still a lot of potential there, and they could have easily corrected a lot of it very simply and made this into a decent film. Right from the start, I said that the casting was shit. I didn't like Jared Leto's Joker. I thought it was a piss-poor rehash of the Heath Ledger Joker, which I didn't like to begin with. Margot Robbie, beautiful woman. I'm sure she's a great actress. She just didn't capture Harley Quinn in my vision of what Harley Quinn is. And now that piss-poor costume adaptation from the movie has made it into the comic, and every girl dressed as that this year for Halloween, that just really pissed me off. Like I said, I'm sure Margot's great, but that's not Harley Quinn, and it pisses me off that that's become the Harley Quinn of the society now. Will Smith is Deadshot. Fuck Will Smith. He's a shit actor, and I really wish they would have cast someone else in that movie. Other than that, most of the characters I was okay with the casting. Like I said, I hated the costuming in the film. I wish it would have been. This is the instance where, like a lot of people complained in, it was either the first or second Avengers film, when Captain America got his more comic booky uniform as opposed to the battle armor uniform that he had in the first couple Captain America films. Everyone's like, oh, it's going so cartoony. I think Suicide Squad is where they should have had the overly cartoony characters with a slight modern twist without totally trying to modernize them and update them for a live-action gritty universe, and just had fun with it, and I think it would have been a lot better. So the casting, the costuming ruined it for me from the start. But the reason this is only number 4 on the list this year is because as I watched the film, I still saw there being potential there. I was like, a couple things shifted around, a few slight different edits, and this could have actually been a solid film, even though I didn't like the casting and the costumes. I still could have enjoyed the film, but the way you guys went about editing it turned it to shit. And the reason this is at number 4 is because I did some research into what was changed when they decided to do all those last-minute rewrites and re-edits and reshoots and everything after the backlash from Batman v Superman, instead of just letting the film stand on its own. And everything I would have changed in this film to make it better is what the film was originally slated to be. Before all the reshoots, re-edits, whatever they did, they had a solid film. They fucked with it, and they ruined it. The costuming and the bad casting could have been overlooked for a decent film, but because you chopped the hell out of it after the fact, you fucked up what could have been there. But because your idea was originally closer to what I would have liked to have seen from it, that's why Suicide Squad only ended up at number 4 on the list of worst films of 2016.
Number 3.
So the number 3 film on the list this year goes to Norm of the North. I hated this film. There was some potential to it. I understood where they were trying to go with it. It was just pandering bullshit that didn't need to exist. And I honestly had to sit here and think, did I hate this film more than I hated Suicide Squad? Yeah, I did. I would gladly watch Suicide Squad again because, like I said, even though it was a shit film and the editing was all fucked, I could actually sit through that film again, where if I had to watch Norm of the North again, I would probably tune out or fall asleep. It was probably the first movie where I actually considered going and getting my money back and going to see a different film that day. But I've yet to walk out of a film, and I wasn't going to let that be the first one to do it. It was a really hard choice between 3 and 4, but Norm of the North won out for the third worst film of 2016.
Number 2.
The number 2 film on the list this year goes to When the Bow Breaks. Again, a movie that looked like it was going to be semi-interesting from the preview until I actually sat down to watch it and remembered what the preview was, and almost instantly thought, why the hell did I come to see this movie? It was utterly boring. It had no story to it. The only redeeming factor was the wife didn't act like a total idiot when the husband was accused of fooling around with the girl, and the guy goes, no, she came on to me. This was the only movie in the history of movies where that's happened, that the wife didn't automatically believe the girl over her husband and say, no, you're lying, you're a cheater, blah, blah, blah. She actually said, okay, honey, I believe you. Let's go to the cops and figure out what the hell is going on. That was the only redeeming factor of this movie. Other than that, it was boring. It was poorly paced. Everything was predictable. It was just utter shit, and I felt like it was a poor remake of another piss-poor film that I'd seen before. And yeah, it just kind of drew out an irritation in me more than anything else did. More than Suicide Squad, more than Norm of the North. This was a film I actually got up and walked towards the door at one point. And again, that same thing with Norm of the North where at Norm of the North I only thought about walking out. This time I actually got up and started to walk towards the door, and I stopped and I said, I haven't walked out yet. Sit down and finish the movie. Unfortunately, it was about a 4.5-hour movie. Not really, it was just under 2 hours, I think. But it felt like an eternity, so I just kind of vegged out through the whole thing, like, okay, get on with it, get on with it, get on with it, get on with it, get on with it. Is it over yet? Come on, get on with it. And it just really went nowhere. And that's why When the Bow Breaks is number 2 on the worst films of 2016.
Number 1.
Alright, here we are at the end of the list. It's number 1. So, after that segment about When the Bow Breaks, what could have possibly irritated me more, pissed me off more, and bored me more than that movie? The number 1 spot this year goes to, I hate to say it, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows. Why does this one end up at number 1? Because honestly, it was the film I was looking forward to the most this year, and it was the biggest letdown out of everything. At least with Suicide Squad, I went into that thinking I wasn't going to like it, and I was right. I didn't like it. But with this, where everyone kind of shit on the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film that came out a couple years ago, I actually loved that film. Yes, it had its problems, but I loved it. And I went into this thinking, okay, this is going to be just as good, if not better. And it shit all over all those hopes and dreams. And just everything about this film. The whole time I'm like, oh, God, why did you do that? What the fuck is that? What is this shit? Why are you doing... What was wrong with the first one? Everything in this movie was just bad. Shredder was bad. Rocksteady was bad, Krang was bad, Bebop was okay, Casey Jones was shit. Just everything in the movie, rehashing a lot of the same old dumb jokes from the first one that kind of pissed me off in the first one. Trying to pander too much to the children audience, trying to make it more like the 80s, 90s cartoon. And the thing is, no one seems to get the 80s, 90s cartoon anymore either, because even like when they refer to it in the current Nickelodeon Ninja Turtles series that they got going on, they dumb it up so much, and it's like, that's not what the original series was. It wasn't that pandering and stupid. And that's what they're trying to do with everything now. It's like, oh, remember that first one? It was so dumb. No, you're making yourselves look dumber by trying to make that one look dumb. And the fact that you're trying to play the same jokes that played in the original series that you're now calling dumb makes you look even more fucking stupid than that does. Like I said, I love the first one. Yes, it had its flaws, but I loved it. And I really wanted to love this one, and I hated this one with a passion. To the point where if they do make a third one, which I hear they are, I honestly can't say if I would see it or not. I mean, I would hope that by the third one they would fix the mistakes, but I have a feeling it's just going to get worse. And do I really want to continue to pay money for something I know is going to be crap? Of course, because it's a review for the site, but from a human standpoint, no, I wouldn't. It was the biggest letdown of the year, where everything else I was kind of expecting to be let down, or I was just bored with it, or it seemed pointless. This is the one that let me down the most, and that I ended up just fuming about for days after I saw it. It drew the most out of me in that sense, and that's why Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadow is the worst film I've seen in 2016. So there you have it. That's my list of the bottom 12 films of 2016. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, as always, I thank you guys for watching, and until next time, we'll see you in the next video.